Hi, I'm Joey with the C.H. Moore Homestead, DeWitt County Museum, and I thought I would take a few moments to tell you a little bit about Mr. Moore's mausoleum and who's inside, maybe a little bit about who's not inside, and then I have a very touching story to share with you. So the mausoleum was actually put up in 1894, and we can actually see a picture of what it looked like not long after it was constructed. Not a lot's changed. You see that the gates are the same. Still trees back there. And it looks quite similar. So this mausoleum is actually positioned at the bottom of the hill. The cemetery at the top of the hill. So Moore's mausoleum stands here alone. And it was actually the idea of the second Mrs. Moore, her name was Rose, to position the mausoleum here rather than in the cemetery. But with it being positioned here, you can actually see the mausoleum anytime that you look out any of the west windows at the Moore mansion. Likewise, standing from here, you can see the mansion. So kind of a neat idea that Rose had. So as far as who is inside the mausoleum, for many years we had no idea because the keys to the mausoleum had been lost. So when the keys were discovered a few years ago, that was quite exciting. And one thing that I had always wondered about, whether or not it was true, is a story that was relayed to me by a lady who knows a great deal about DeWitt County history. And she told me that she had always heard that Mr. Moore's two sons who died in childhood were actually placed in the same crypt drawer here, head to head, both little boys. Two little boys who had such short lives they would not have known each other in life, but they are resting together in here in death. Well, of course, that captured my imagination. I'd wondered about that for years. And then, when we found the keys and were able to open the doors, there was the answer. So there are actually 9 drawers situated in this mausoleum. Lots of times in this area, the mausoleum drawers are on the sides, but in this particular case, they're all to the back. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 drawers. And sure enough, Mr. Moore is in there. The first Mrs. Moore, the second Mrs. Moore, a sister, Mr. Moore's son who lived to adulthood, Arthur. It was intended for him to be in there. His name is actually engraved on one of the cap ends. However, he is not interred here. He is actually buried up on the hill. And then sure enough, the two little boys, William and Kleber, both names are engraved on the same end cap with their birth and death dates. So I'm certain that they are truly in there, laying together, head to head, just as I was told. Now, with this not going up until 1894, and those two little boys having died long before then, they were actually buried in a different cemetery. Clinton's first cemetery was actually located in what we now know as Prairie Passage, near the center of town. And after interring about a half dozen people in that burial ground, it became evident that that was less than ideal. Animals were disturbing the graves, and they realized that they needed to find a different location. So a gentleman by the name of John J. McGraw offered land to serve as Clinton's public burial ground. So that's known as McGraw Cemetery, an abandoned cemetery now, but you can still explore that cemetery. It's just south of Clinton. So Mr. Moore's little boys would have been buried in that McGraw Cemetery, and then when this was built in 1894, they would have been disinterred and then placed here. So now I'm going to share a little story about Kleber's death. Now, this is an account that showed up in the Clinton Public newspaper in October of 1887. And rather than me relay the story to you, I'm just going to read the actual words that were printed. Sometimes I feel that that's a little more powerful when relaying a story such as this. So, this is what they had to report. A singular incident was connected with the death of Mr. Moore's second son, Kleber A. Moore and Dr. John Warner had been on a trip to Iowa for the purpose of locating land. In those days were but few railroads, so they started from home with a carriage and team. They had been gone for 6 weeks, during the time they had not heard a word from home. On the return trip, they got as far as LaSalle when Mr. Moore was seized with an uncontrollable desire to reach home as soon as possible. He could not give any reasons, but had a premonition that something had happened. He told Dr. Warner he would have to leave him, and that Warner would have to bring the team, and that he would have to take the Central train, which then ran as far as Clinton. The doctor was much incensed at being deserted and expressed himself in vigorous language. However, it was no use. Moore could not resist the unseen hand that was beckoning him homeward. He arrived at Clinton about noon, and the first person he met after getting off the cars was his brother Blish, who told him the sad news of the death of his boy. So we hear a lot about mother's intuition, but I would say there's something to be said for father's intuition as well, and we can only imagine the heartbreak that followed.